All right, on the record, go ahead, Ms. Drake.
In my opening testimony attachment, if we find it, or perhaps if we don't, I mean, it says been served to the parties, everyone has had it. There is a nuclear power plant emergency information for farmers, ranchers, nursery stock producers, food processors, and distributors. That describes on page 7 that a potential result of a nuclear power emergency would be temporarily holding crops from market, quarantine of food, quarantine of animals. Is that your understanding of what the ingestion pathway issues are? You were responding to Ms. Venskis before, and you described that there is an issue with food and animals. In the ingestion, that's what ingestion zone refers to.
That's what it focuses on, because the analysis and testing has observed that at that 50-mile radius limit, the most likely impact would be affecting foodstuff, livestock, and so forth.
Why is there no information in the Edison brochure about what might happen to their food supply and their animals?
I don't know that it doesn't. I think one of the documents we were looking at earlier did have some information about pets.
I believe the information about pets was that people were supposed to leave them at home because they're not allowed at the evacuation centers.
Was that a question?
I asked whether that information about the quarantine of food and animals is something that the quarantine of animals and the holding off the market of the food, why that is not mentioned in your brochure, in the Edison brochure.
The brochure earlier was addressed to the emergency planning zone.
Well, the people in the emergency planning zone would have even more reason to be concerned about their food and their animals, wouldn't they?
In the unlikely event of an emergency, the best thing they would do would be to evacuate. That's the plan.
But they were supposed to leave their animals behind.
If it were a severe emergency, I believe that would be the prudent thing to do.
And their animals after that might be quarantined.
Perhaps.
And their food supply might be inedible.
The food supply they left behind might be.
And they might encounter problems with purchasing food or eating food from local farms. Is that so?
That's possible.
That's what's happening in Fukushima area, is that correct?
I believe that is correct.
And that is not in your brochure?
Are markedly different.
Pardon me?
The circumstances here about preparation is markedly different than what tragically has resulted. That's an actual tragedy.
Yes.
This is planning for what we expect could happen at San Onofre. And I'm also might observe that the NRC and FEMA are in the midst of updating all the emergency planning to take note of lessons learned at Fukushima.
Does the nuclear division have its own outreach public relations personnel, or does it share those with SCE Corporation as a whole?
I think they are employees of the corporate department, although they have offices at the site.
And the nuclear organizations that you're involved with, Nuclear Energy Institute, INPO, and EPRI, do they provide assistance, training, and advice on or advice on your outreach materials and activities?
I think INPO definitely has a major role in all the training. They're the accrediting group, and I think NEI and the other organization provide materials to us. I don't know exactly. They assist us in a multitude of things. I would expect that outreach is part of it.
And Nuclear Energy Institute as well?
Yes.
So public relations information and advice would be coming from those organizations?
I wasn't suggesting public relations advice. Mine was more to do with lessons learned and information sharing about what is effective and what kind of outreach works best. There's a great deal of sharing of information among the nuclear utilities.
And they share through those trade organizations, yes?
Yes.
In our phone conversations on our data requests, well, let's get the exhibit out right now. There's a WEM SCE 6 is what number that I have. Just a minute. It has to do with philanthropy. We marked it SCE 6. Is that changed?
WEM 6?
Well, it's WEM crosses 6. Is that just WEM 6?
That was marked as WEM 6.
All right, fine.
Yeah, this is a data request.
This is a data request, and we asked for a list of contributions made to local communities. And we were given the attached list of 2012 Songs Philanthropy Summary. What is the LPA budget, which is the section down here, halfway down the first page?
That's an acronym for Local Public Affairs.
All right. So there's a variety of local groups that are receiving philanthropy from Edison, including San Clemente Earth Day, right?
Yes.
Are those funded by ratepayers?
Not directly. They're funded out of retained earnings or shareholders.
You described a number of things that were ratepayer funded. You said things at the heart of emergency preparedness, meetings with local governments, drills, such things as that were ratepayer funded.
Correct.
And your brochure, your emergency planning brochure, is ratepayer funded, right?
Correct.
So these are shareholder-funded contributions. You mentioned to me that there are actually, there's a report called the 77M report. Are these philanthropy contributions listed in your 77M report?
I don't know that they are. The 77M identifies philanthropic contributions, I believe, that are directed by individual employees and officers, senior people. It may also pick up the SCE corporate philanthropy as well.
And you mentioned to me that the parent company is the source of the largest amount of contributions, and those are not reported anywhere. Is that correct?
Yes, because the parent company is not regulated by the Public Utilities Commission.
So, in other words, these contributions are from SCE, not from EIX?
Correct.
You mentioned school kids tours through the control room simulator are ratepayer funded because they're educational activities?
Yes.
And the songs open houses are ratepayer funded?
Yes.
You mentioned that that activities are not itemized. Events and activities are not itemized. Is that correct? By your accounting department?
Correct, because two reasons. One, the employee's time is that they get an hourly wage. They don't get paid on a piece rate based on which fair they went to. And a number of activities our employees may do on the weekends or after hours. So we don't track that as well.
So the ones that are going to something that's during company hours, they receive their regular pay for that.
Sure. For example, if
Although you don't have to give an example.
the simulator, if somebody comes
right.
to the simulator during the business day, the employees show them how the control room works.
Well, if those items are not itemized, then how would somebody be able to review whether they were correctly posted to a ratepayer account or a shareholder account?
I would expect through discovery, customarily in our general rate case. That's a routine type of discovery we get, and we can go and determine which final cost center that employee's time is recording to. We can get a pretty good idea. It takes some time and some digging, but we generally can identify which account their time is recording to.
Thank you. Is the songscommunity.com webpage ratepayer funded?
Yes.
What about the Google ads for songscommunity.com?
No.
Please look at WEM's Exhibit 3, WEM 3. This is the home page of the songscommunity.com web page and one of their drop-down menus. The main text on the front page says San Onofre Nuclear Generating Station safely providing reliable and clean electricity for more than 40 years. Would you describe a power plant that's been shut down for 16 months as reliable?
I wouldn't say today, but we expect it to be before long, to return to being reliable before long.
But this is on your website now.
It would still be true that it had provided reliable service for 40 years, if I do the math in my head. Perhaps
So are we in the
41,
41st year?
Not 41 years.
Oh, that's nice. So then the drop-down menu also says safe, reliable, and clean. Would you describe Fukushima as clean?
This webpage describes San Onofre, and it does provide clean power. I think that it's well understood that there are virtually no emissions from nuclear power, which is emissions being a significant problem these days.
Well, that's an opinion, actually. I think there are some emissions, but we're not going to get into that right now. The exclusion zones around Fukushima and Chernobyl, does that mean that people who lived there had to move out indefinitely?
Objection, Your Honor. Scope.
Sustained.
Is it possible for the San Onofre nuclear power plant to release radiation in large quantities? Is it possible?
That's somewhat open-ended. I guess one could speculate circumstances that could happen, but it's designed to be highly safe and very unlikely that would happen.
But it could happen, yes?
Given the right hypothetical construct, it could be possible.
Thank you. I'm skipping around a bit because I'm trying to hurry things up. On the sheltering in place, which is beyond the 10-mile zone, that's where you're advised to people in the Zone 2 and I guess Zone 3. Would you tell me, after an earthquake, how do people shelter in place if their windows are broken and their buildings are collapsing?
I would need more facts than that in the hypothetical example to give you a full answer. And I expect that under an earthquake condition, people would probably not be advised to shelter in place as much as if it were a straightforward release not precipitated by an earthquake.
So your emergency planning brochure
Let him finish.
doesn't cover earthquakes?
The planning regimen that is in place at San Onofre, in tight consultation and coordination with the Interjurisdictional Planning Committee, defers to scenarios in which they have various types of disasters and specific responses to those disasters. So they're mindful that we live in a state with faults, and we are mindful that might require a different direction to the populace in an event of an earthquake than in the event of a release from an accident at the reactor.
And what if they both happened at the same time?
I don't think they would happen at the same time. I think one would happen after the other, but that's parsing too much.
So you would have a meltdown after an earthquake, for example?
Allow him to finish.
They have specific protocols to give the public direction under specific circumstances. They have identified a wide range of possible emergencies, and they drill for that regularly. The sirens are tested daily. In silent mode, they're tested regularly. There's extensive drilling.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. George, real quick, 5-minute warning. And
I have, that's why I'm trying to...
okay. And just as a reminder, if you want to use the remainder of your marked exhibits, please get there. Go ahead.
On page 6 of SCE 4, your last row in the chart. It refers to agreement hospitals and transportation services. So this says you completed an annual agreement with 4 local hospitals, etc. Would you tell me what are the health and safety qualifications of the person or persons who assembled your community outreach and emergency preparedness educational materials?
It was managed by our corporate security organization and our corporate communications and San Onofre personnel. I'm not sure who the specific person was on a given piece of outreach. I do know they are highly trained and certified with FEMA and the NRC and the other agencies. Their particular degrees, I'm not familiar with that, or licenses, or whatever.
I am sorry, I missed a couple of questions about sheltering in place. There are other more detailed recommendations by the Health and Human Services Agency for sheltering in place, such as turning off all air vents, air conditioning, sealing of windows, air ducts, and doors. Why were those omitted from your educational and outreach materials?
I've read that exact language, and I think it may be in some of our materials. I think I recall reading it. I believe it was Edison documents, but I could be wrong.
Can potassium iodide be taken by persons with allergies to that substance?
Well, if it's an allergy to that substance, I believe there would be some consequence, but I'm not a medical doctor, so I can't offer an opinion on that.
So your brochure doesn't say anything about potential allergies to potassium iodide, does it?
No.
Do your materials include a description of the health impacts of different types of radiation exposure, such as acute radiation syndrome?
I don't know.
Okay, 1 minute.
You don't know whether your materials include that, or you don't know
I
whether...
don't recall seeing that.
Thank you. Are you, is the Edison, my understanding is that there is a state cap on emergency planning community outreach for nuclear issues, and I realize I don't have that citation. Are you aware of any cap on those expenditures?
By my company or by the state itself?
I think the state had a law that put a cap on those.
I'm unaware of that.
Okay. And so do you know how much Edison's does spend on that, those separate activities, community outreach and emergency planning in 2012?
And I think I've explained before, there are a variety of personnel involved. We don't corner it all and record it in one place, and there are also quite a bit of outreach activities that are off hours, and our employees do it at their own initiative. And we encourage it, but we don't track their time on weekends and so forth.
My last question is on the employee participation in these outreach events. Do the employees report to somebody in the company? Is that how they make this list?
I think there was somebody internal who has been keeping track of it, and I think they do try to survey the employees to see how we're doing and what kind of outreach we're engaged in. Often the company will provide materials, and so we know it that way. So.
And would the materials be...
All right, thank you, Ms. George.
Okay.
That was the last one. Mr. Shopson, I understand you have
Two questions.
Actually, I have a motion and not a question.
Okay.
I think it's a good time to bring it up.
Regarding Mr. Warden?
No, regarding some matters.
Okay, well, let's finish with Mr. Warden then. Okay, so the cross is complete. I had just a couple of questions. I've given up most of mine, but I want to ask a couple of questions regarding the personnel reductions, Mr. Warden. And I'd like to address your attention to SCE 4, pages 16 and 17.
Okay.
Now, during the GRC, in which personnel reductions related to songs were discussed, Do you recall that the testimony was that there was an expectation of 700 employees and 100 contractors being let go during 2012?
Your Honor, I believe it was 500.
Yes, okay, 500, yes. All right, so and during the GRC, the representation was that these reductions would be completed during 2012, is that correct?
Yes, they would. In the rate case, we forecast they would commence in October of 2012 and be completed shortly thereafter.
On page 16, line 20 to 21, the testimony identifies that there has been one reduction of 258 employees by December 28th, and an involuntary severance of 15 managers for a total of 273 employees. Are those correct numbers?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. And elsewhere, it might be the next page, I think, or maybe it was elsewhere in Mr. Perez's testimony, and I don't have my finger on it at the moment, but I think he said there had been an additional number of contractors who have been let go during 2012. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. So, can you explain to me why the personnel reductions which were anticipated when the plant was in full operational mode were greater than the number of actual reductions when the plant was in a non-operational mode?
I'm not sure I understand your question. The actual number of reductions is greater than what was contemplated in the rate case.
In the rate case, it was 500 employees and 100 contractors. Right now, according to this testimony, only 273 of the 500 employees have been taken off payroll.
There are subsequent waves that culminate this summer. It's a timing issue, Your Honor. And I think the rate case rate making reflected that sequencing because the savings was spread out over the 3-year cycle. The actual reductions are going to be 730 people, and they will be fully in place by this summer, which is generally consistent, at least with the trend that was considered in the rate case.
So your recollection is that the reduction of 500 employees was not to occur only in the test year 2012, according to your GRC representations? Your
Honor, we expected them to all occur between October of 2012 and year-end 2012.
Right.
We could not rely on the accuracy of that forecast, and we also had to normalize for a test year. So the arithmetic worked out that we thought we would get 3 months of savings in 2012, and then a full 12 months of savings in 13 and 14 each year. So it's a timing issue. The actual force reductions will be a greater number, and they will have been concluded by mid-year 2013.
Okay. In the GRC decision and the preliminary allowance of costs and savings relative to songs, the Commission's decision directed that cost savings be allocated 100% to ratepayers. Is that how Edison is allocating savings relative to personnel reductions in 2012?
We are tracking that, and we can identify it. Your Honor, whether by accident or by design, the preliminarily authorized revenue requirement did not make that adjustment. The preliminarily authorized revenue requirement kept Edison's request at its full request, which only had 50% of the savings.
That's astounding, having personally been involved in working with the RO model on that. See, all right?
Your Honor, the final decision authorized Edison's full request in O&M expense preliminarily. There's
Right.
no lost opportunity for the commission to...
I get that. I'm just making a note because of the RO model conversation. Okay, that will take care of my limited inquiries at the moment. That goes back to Mr. Weissman.
All right, Mr. Weissman.
Three very quick topics. First of all, please turn to SCE 9, page 3.
Which one is that?
SCE 9.
Other interveners.
Thank you.
Line 13, there was discussion of the concept of risk sharing. You answered some questions about shareholder risks. What did you mean by ratepayer risk in this context?
Yes, I left out that part of the equation. The ratepayer risk is that the asset will not operate for its full anticipated life, and the ratepayer is responsible for continuing to pay for those assets even though they didn't operate the full projected operating life, so long as the utility's conduct was reasonable in the shortened life of the asset.
And if the asset lasts longer than its anticipated life?
If it lasts longer than its anticipated life, potentially the ratepayer, in some instances, is getting service for free, or essentially for free.
Turning to Joint Parties Exhibit 3.
It's at the bottom of the pile. I'm there.
Toward the bottom of the page, of the third page of this, last page of this exhibit, 2012 Community Outreach Activities, you were discussing the education/training activities. Do you recall that testimony?
Yes.
Could you clarify what activities are captured by education/training?
Yes, it's the Edison personnel reaching out to those parts of the area around songs, to citizens that have special needs, to be cognizant and integrated into any emergency planning. And by that I have in mind groups like school bus drivers aggregate to make sure the planning is synchronized. It is also to first responders. It is also town hall meetings with city managers, outreach to hospitals and those kinds of institutions as well, to provide the emergency preparedness training.
Lastly, you gave an answer earlier this afternoon where you stated, in response to an inquiry about the status of the Neal claim, that no action had been taken by Neal. Can you clarify what you meant by that?
I meant, I had ill-chosen words. I meant there had been no payment received. What is occurring is that there's communications and exchanges of information as the claim is pending.
That's all I have. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. Is there any recross on that limited redirect?
Just one question.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. I saw Mr. Lewis first.
So, Mr. Warden, I just want to clarify, that is what the 19 events for education and training, that was confined to the emergency planning zone, correct?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, Mr. Dobson.
Thank you. I'm not sure I understood you correctly. I believe you said something to the effect of, as long as the IOU was acting reasonably, it gets a rate of return on rate base. Is that what you testified to?
It earns a return on rate base. Over an asset's life, rate base declines, and therefore there is a smaller value to multiply times the authorized cost of capital, and therefore the dollar value of the return declines.
Okay, but is there a component in there, in your mind, that has to do with the utility's reasonableness?
No, what I was observing is if an asset ends its operating life prematurely, let's set aside a nuclear plant for a moment. Car hits a pole.
I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but I believe I understand the example in your testimony.
Okay.
I'm a little confused about whether or not, in your mind, you believe reasonableness is a part of what is required to get a rate of return on rate base.
The Commission must find that the investment on the capital that finds its way to rate base was invested in prudently and reasonably by the utility. That evidentiary showing has to take place before this Commission before the asset can be moved into authorized rate base, and then the utility can earn a return, collect book depreciation and taxes and so forth.
I see. So just so that I'm clear, you're telling us then that the reasonableness part or the prudency part is when it is first decided that it should go into rate base.
Correct.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else? Hearing none?
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Weissman, any closing words? No. Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Warden, you may step down.
Okay, let's take some time to get Edison's exhibits taken care of.
Your Honor, with your permission, I would like to ask my colleague, Ms. Emily Viglietta of the New York Bar and soon to be of the California Bar, to handle the introduction of the exhibits, please.
Okay.
Go ahead.
As quickly and succinctly as possible.
Sure. So we circulated a list of the exhibits that we are seeking to move into evidence, which I will read into the record. A portion of SCE 1, which is page 7, lines 1 through 8. I'm sorry, page 7, line 1 through page 8, line 3, plus the witness qualifications.
I'm sorry, is this tracking this that you've sent out?
Yes.
Thank
Or
you.
this one,
It is tracking
that one.
this one. Is everyone? SCE 2, question number 22, which is on pages 28 through 35, plus the witness qualifications. All of SCE 4. SCE 5, page 10, line 1 through page 11, line 10, plus appendices A through E and the witness qualifications. SCE 7, there are two separate sections. There's page 1, line 1 through page 2, line 3. And there's also page 4, line 3 through page 8, line 6, plus the witness qualifications. In SCE 8, there are also two portions, page 1, line 1 through page 6, line 6, as well as page 8, line 6 through page 12, line 24, and the witness qualifications. SCE 9, there are three sections. There's page 1, line 1 through page 13, line 6, and page 19, line 10 through page 24, line 23, and page 25, line 1 through page 27, line 4, plus the witness qualifications. And then for SCE 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. Those are all the entire exhibit. And then
26, that was not used, so we're not,
okay.
I don't even think it got marked on the record either.
It was not.
Right,
Okay, so we will remove SCE 26. Right.
Okay.
Sorry, Your Honor, may I interject? I apologize for interrupting, but on SCE 28, this was the one we had a little bit of discussion about, the additional audit
Oh, I
report
thought that was 26, 28.
for Mr. On. I don't know, as I say, we are fine either way. If the commission wants to have it as part of the record, we'll move it in. If not, we would not move it in.
Let's not move it in. It wasn't spoken to. There was no cross on it, so
Okay.
no opportunity.
Okay, and then for SCE 29, this is what was previously marked as Appendix 1 to SCE 2 and 3, which we have renamed as SCE 29 for clarity, and that's just tab 22 of that appendix. And then for SCE 31 is what was formerly Appendix 4 to SCE 4, and that's the entire appendix. And then not SCE 32, but SCE 33, the entire exhibit, and then all of SCE 34, which was formerly Appendix 3 to SCE 4.
All right. Any objections to that motion?
Hearing none.
Yeah, I don't understand why we're not including some of SCE 07 and SCE 09. Looks like there's missing portions.
The missing portions are based on the ALJ's ruling regarding our motion to strike. So
That was rebuttal testimony to direct testimony that had been struck.
Oh, okay.
So we took the rebuttal out, too.
Okay, got it.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Any other objections?
And they're all admitted.
All right. Hearing none, all of the exhibits as stated are admitted.
So let's go to
I'd
A&R.
also like to move
So-
Exhibit 1 of old business. I'm sorry, am I talking out of turn?
No, we'll take Ms. Venskis first, then we'll go to the coalition, and then we'll go to DRA.
I make a motion to move World Business Academy Exhibit 1 into evidence, which is testimony of Ronaldo Brutico, and I've stricken through those portions that are deferred. Do you want me to read that into the record, or do you want me to just move the document into the record?
If it reflects the strikeouts that were ordered by my ruling, then you can just refer to the ruling.
Okay, and so in referring to the ALJ's Darling ruling dated May 9th, I believe.
Probably. May 10th.
May 10th. I've stricken out portions of Mr. Brutico's testimony that has been deferred. The ruling did not grant SCE's motion to strike any of the Brutico testimony.
All right. Any objections to the WBA motion? All right. Hearing none, that exhibit is marked and received. All right. Ms. Sullivan.
Yes, the coalition center move to enter our exhibits 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 9 into evidence.
All right. Are there any objections to the CDSO motion?
We have objections to, I'm sorry, did you move to enter into evidence 4, 5, and 6?
I'm sorry,
We have objections to CDSO 4, 5, and 6.
where are they?
To CDSO 4, which is the article about the NRC's investigation, the objections are foundation and relevance.
Okay.
I don't believe that CDSO has established that there were any 2012 costs associated with any of these NRC findings, which was
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that one.
I said I don't believe that CDSO has established that there were any 2012 costs associated with any of these NRC findings, which I think
it was clear from the article that there were violations in past years.
I don't think that that's within the scope.
All right. Address your comments here. All right. So continue with your explanation of 5 and 6 quickly.
Sure. For 5, the objections are foundation and relevance. This is a document that CDSO prepared. It's their own analysis of the cost effectiveness of the 70% restart plan. There was no foundation for this document, and as Judge Darling stated on the record, CDSO did not show that there's any relationship between the decision that SCE made about the SGRP to the decision to restart Unit 2 at 70%. And then for
That chart is...
All right. Let her
It's not your
finish.
turn.
For CDSO 6, the objections are the same for CDSO 5. This is a portion of the SGRP decision. CDSO is obviously free to cite this decision in their brief. I don't see why it needs to be in the record.
All
It's
right.
not relevant.
Very good. I will sustain the objections to CDSO 4, 5, and 6. So we will mark and admit CDSO 1, 2, 3, and 9.
So I don't even get an opportunity to respond to their objections?
Not if he doesn't see any way out for you.
What happened to being told earlier that I would have that opportunity?
Actually, that is true. I said you need to be prepared, because I actually did alert Ms. Sullivan that objections might be coming, that she would have an opportunity. I'm not sure how you get around it, but you can take a couple minutes and try to argue it to Judge
All
W.
right. Very good. Yeah, go ahead.
We don't need to move 6 in because that's a commission decision. So it's, as I understand it, we can refer to that
Agreed.
regardless.
Yes.
As I said earlier on CDSO 4, that the references in that article were clear that was there were violations that had occurred prior to 2013. And I think it's very relevant to have that in the record to show that Edison has not been the, good nuclear power plant operator that it purports to be.
Was this that
This is the Orange County something.
It was also very recent,
This is a
a very
newspaper
recent
article?
article.
Yeah. Yeah. Take the cover.
It was the first availability of this NRC inspection report.
Well, in general, newspaper articles are not relevant evidence because they're simply hearsay, and you don't have, there's no foundation to show that anything is actually true that's in them.
So you're saying that the NRC inspection report is not true?
No, what I'm saying is that newspaper articles are generally not allowed as admissible evidence because it could be anything. There's no foundation to show that the statements inside a newspaper article are objectively true.
Well, could this be subject to check then?
No, because there's no, subject to check would be to check against business records of the utility. This is not a piece of evidence that would qualify for that. This is just a newspaper article. So what do we have here? Oh, right. And who answered on that? Somebody did answer on that. Who did you cross on this, with this? Is that, who did you use this exhibit with?
I'm sorry?
What witness did you use this exhibit with?
That was with Mr. Perez, I believe.
Mr. Wiseman, can you refresh our memory? Did you lodge an objection at the time? Before Mr. Perez answers these questions?
I don't remember. I apologize, Your Honor.
I don't think so either. Why don't we let it in? Because she did get some, I remember that she did get to cross him and he answered some questions and I
I'm
don't
sure I must
remember.
have objected.
I don't remember anything, an objection at the time, so.
All right, very, very good, Ms. Sullivan. We'll admit CDSO 4.
And we just want to speak briefly to CDSO number 5, very briefly.
Yes, I just wanted to say that I understand Judge Darling made a ruling that the economic model in this case was different than the model in the prior steam generator replacement program. I'd like to assert that that's actually the job of Edison to make that case.
Right, but what's at issue here is an exhibit that has no foundation. We don't know where it came from, where it comes from, what the information is. There was nothing established on the record to support the exhibit, so it's not.
The ruling at the time that cut off my pursuit of that information, I think was, I would like to object to that ruling now to say that I think that it would be more proper to have Edison make the case that their economic model was different than the one used in the steam generator replacement program. Thank you.
All right. Yes, you're certainly free to make burden of proof arguments in your briefs.
So we're taking 1, 2, 3, 4, and 9 are being marked and admitted today.
All right. Next up, we're going to Mr. Shapson.
Yes, thank you. Actually, let's do the easy one first. I move DRA 1 into evidence.
Any objections? Hearing none?
Wait.
DRA 1.
Subject to the ruling on the motion to strike, correct? Because DRA 1 was testimony?
Was that in your motion to strike, and didn't I rule on it?
Yes.
You did.
You did.
And I took it, did I take out anything?
Yes.
Took out a little something?
Just a little bitty something.
So you're proposing the exhibit as modified?
Correct.
All right. And any objections to the exhibit as modified by the ruling?
No.
Okay.
All right. In that case,
Your Honors, I have two motions. They're based on the same logic, though, so I'd like to be able to defend my motion after the eventual objection I get.
all right. Let us state that we did admit DRA 1.
Are you addressing motions relative to your testimony? Because right now what we need to do time-wise is
I
get
understand.
everybody's exhibits in. And so this is relative to your exhibits?
Correct.
Okay.
All right. Go ahead.
I would like to move into evidence DRA Exhibit 4 and 5. Take it, Tommy.
Refresh my memory, Mr. Shapson. Which ones are those? These are the letters from Senator Boxer?
Yes.
And the NRC response in 2014.
All right. Any objections to those?
Yes, we object to those.
On the grounds?
Scope, relevance.
Scope and relevance, and the fact they weren't used.
Mr. Shapson?
Okay.
At the last moment.
That's fine. I understand. In conjunction with my justification for that, I also want to move for reconsideration of exclusion of attachment 1 to our evidence, which is the Boxer and Markey February 6th letter. And I want to tell you why they should be admitted.
Quickly.
All right. But you didn't use them, right?
Well, they're attached to our it's attached to our testimony, and my understanding is from counsel that foundation was waived, so that I didn't need to ask anybody questions about the foundation of the exhibits.
So you're going to make an argument that these are relevant to 2012 expenditures?
Yes.
You have a moment.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Absolutely. The letters are directly relevant to DRA's recommendation regarding this phase of the proceeding. The case is about the reasonableness of the costs incurred in 2012 with regard to songs. Edison has testified that Unit 2 was maintained in a state of eventual operation. They go so far as to claim it will start up when the go-aheads are given, not if the regulatory hurdles are met. We have also learned in this proceeding since the testimony was filed, that there are other possible postures for Unit 2. Permanent shutdown, preservation mode. We've also learned that the NRC has various mode categorizations. Non-utility parties, have raised at least the possibility that the posture that Edison chose to put the plant in may have been an unreasonable choice. And I'm guessing that they can speak to those better than I can characterize their positions. However, and finally, we know that Edison has not estimated the costs associated with either of these two alternative postures. From all that, we know that Edison had choices and picked one. It was probably the most expensive choice without knowing what the costs for the other two options were. What do the letters indicate? The three letters. The three letters indicate that this is a fast-moving situation. They indicate that investigations that delve deeper...
Yes, we're listening.
Okay. They indicate that this is a fast-moving situation. They indicate that investigations that delve deeper than prior investigations are likely to start, and they indicate that the top federal entity with the most subject matter expertise, under the watchful eye of some fairly important politicians, will be leading the investigation. This all goes to the admissibility of the letters because it is directly related to DRA's recommendation that the reasonableness of Edison's actions and specifically their choice to place Unit 2 in a particular posture should not be rushed to judgment. Even if the test were, is there a reasonable possibility that a federal investigation might produce evidence that could help us understand what would have been the reasonable thing to do? These letters meet the test. These letters help us understand that waiting won't be forever and that there is a lot of renewed interest and attention. The fact that there is renewed interest and attention directly supports DRA's recommendation to wait until the federal investigation plays out before judging the reasonableness of Edison's choices in 2012. The letters meet the basic test of admissibility, its probative value as compared to its prejudicial effect. There is no prejudice to Edison because these letters have already been widely disseminated, but the probative value goes directly to DRA's recommendation that the reasonableness of Edison's main decision, what posture to put the plant in, may have the benefit of new information generated by the NRC investigation. And I would specifically point to number 4 indicates that there's going to be a comprehensive investigation. Number 5 indicates our ongoing efforts to fully investigate the issues regarding steam generator tubes. And the NRC is going to continue to use a wide variety of regulatory actions to ensure that the agency comprehensively addresses the issues that have arisen. Thank you.
Mr. Weissman, can I trust you for a very quick response?
I would just say that I think this is a Phase 3 issue.
I agree. This is a Phase 3 subject. So we'll hold these. We will not admit these exhibits now. Motion denied. We'll revisit the issues in Phase 3. All right. Who else has?
A&R, we need to clean up.
All right. Let's take a turn while Mr. Giesman is on his way to a microphone.
We have one outstanding exhibit turn-3, that was used in my cross-examination with Mr. Warden, that we would move for that to be admitted.
All right. Any objections to turn 3?
No.
All right.
Turn 3. Did you say 30, Your Honor?
Turn 3.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Turn 3 is marked and admitted. All right, Mr. Giesman.
We did not use either A4NR 8 or A4NR 9, and I would request that they be withdrawn.
Yes.
Granted. A4NR 8 and 9 are withdrawn.